Sabourin, and I'm the project engineer for the Murphy Corridor Improvements Project. One big differentiator to point out, from the group that just presented is they're really on the planning side of city projects. So, the heavy lift that they have on that, it's a bit different from what we're doing with trying to deliver projects. So, what I primarily work on is projects that are funded in the city or in our capital improvement plan. So this one specifically that I'm here to talk about tonight is the Murphy Corridor project, and anyone who's not familiar, this is a completion for improving that project going all the way from the Peril and Murphy intersection that was completed a couple of years ago, all the way east over to 15th Street. So it includes upgrading that existing corridor to Broster House intersection, and then extending Murphy farther over to the east with an overcrossing at the NSF rail, and then connecting up there at 15th and Golden Gate. I'm an engineer, so I was thinking about a joke that I could tell earlier, and you talking about the railway made me think that I'd prefer that we don't put that sign up until we're done coordination here, or you guys might not get the Murphy project, so that's my joke. So just real quickly before I start talking about the Murphy project, my hopes tonight here, and I'll try to be really brief about it, we started this project and once again fully funded capital project at the beginning of this year, 2019, and we've had a lot of open houses, a lot of community coordination, we've been moving forward with design, we've had a couple construction packages that have come forward specifically over on 15, so I want to cover all that real quickly and talk about some of the input that we've gotten from the community, some of the progress that we've made, really highlight what we see as our construction schedule going forward now, and then some additional community outreach that's going to come up around specifically around some of the concerns that we've heard as we've done some of these open houses. So first of all, this is just an overview map of Southeast Bend, and we have this over by the table here as well. We've been bringing this to all the open houses and all the public meetings to really show all the investment that's going on in Southeast Bend currently. It's not just this Murphy, and this is specifically public spending or public investment, not additionally the private projects that are taking place and the public improvements that are being completed as part of that. So we got the Murphy project, as you can see, which is right there. And then just on the east side of it to the south, you have the Alpenvilla Park, which is planned to begin in the later part of next year, 2020 or 2021. I think it's still up in the air a bit. We have the school project, which is taking place down by Knott and 15th. We have some pump decommissioning, which you might have seen over along Broster House and along Murphy Road. You have septic to sewer, which Lindsay's here to talk about next, and that's going to be beginning in the early part of 2020. The canal crossing, another park, City of Bend partnership. We've been working with them on the crossing at Chloe Lane and the sidewalk extension on 15th Street. So that's just a quick overview. We can talk more about that and the timing of it. These are projects that are funded or anticipated to be funding and be built in the next year. So that's one of the big things that we have to be coordinating with as Murphy's being implemented, is trying to phase these projects to do the best that we can to try to limit our impact and our overlapping detours and things like that. We can move on to the next. So to get into where we're at with the Murphy project here today and kind of some of the activities that we've had, and we'll talk a little bit more about it in the next slide here, but we've really been focused on 15th Street. So with this project, we're using a design build delivery method, which basically means we're designing this whole corridor, which has been approved by council, and we're breaking out construction packages over the next 2 years to construct it. So this year we've really been heavily focused on 15th, and that's part of this coordination with the other projects that are taking place with the parks and school and septic to sewer, that we didn't want to have those overlapping traffic control plans, and we wanted to start over on this east side to get away from those projects and start to move west. So once again, we don't have that overlapping. Some of the construction that we've done here to date, we have the roundabout, we have the extension up to the north, and then we have our embankment going up to the bridge overpass, which will be continuing here this fall and hopefully completing this fall. Lost track. Oh, conceptual design. I'll get into that in these next couple slides. We've had a real heavy focus in a lot of things that we've talked about with our previous open houses. Is our first phase of this is really what are the needed improvements along the corridor? What is the capacity growth going to be in the next 30 years? What do we need for a cross section as far as 2 lanes or 3 lanes? What are the major intersection improvements need to be at 15th, Country Club, Broster House, and then Benham Road? Some of these areas where we're seeing higher volume turning movements, and we're seeing a really lot of growth over the next several years down here. Keep moving on. So to talk a little bit more about some of the concerns that we've heard with some of these open houses over the last several months, we put together this exhibit, which really kind of concentrated the concerns in 3 areas. And it's not everything that we've heard, but this has been some of the larger messaging. So with 15th Street over here, the 15th Street roundabout, there's a lot of concern about speed along 15th Street, about that roundabout proximity to the Bridges community to the east, and then about traffic. Are we going to be promoting more traffic into their community? And so that's something we coordinated with them. We tried to optimize our design to help with that. And as you can continue to the west, is great of a benefit, as a lot of people have said, of having this extension and the bridge overcrossing the rail, and that improved emergency response time, that reduced delay. There's still some concerns around it. Right now there's not a road there. There's ways that people use that area that they won't be able to use it the same after the construction improvements are there. And we'll be introducing traffic to it. So there's a built community there. There's going to be headlights. There's going to be noise. This is something that we're trying to work with on our design to try to mitigate as much as we can, recognizing that it's still going to be a change from the current. And there's more small group meetings with that community to come. There's been some to date. And then as we move to the west, there's really been a large resounding message about pedestrian safety or safety with crossing the road. We have a school located over there, have a lot of pedestrian traffic, and not really good connected sidewalk currently for them to get to their destination, especially thinking that we're having a park that's going to be built here, another school down by Knott Road, and then right of way. We'll get into the proposed improvements next, but right now it's a 60-foot wide right of way. Per this type of roadway, it's typically 80 feet. People just want to be informed. They want to know, want to understand the schedule, want to understand the process, and that's a big lift that we're probably starting here over the next month. Move into the next. This is just a quick snapshot of what the cross sections look like. So we ended our conceptual phase of the project. We're in our design/construction because of our delivery method. And the summary of it is really that modernization segment, parallel over to Broster House, is primarily a 3-lane section with roundabout treatments at the intersections of Country Club and Broster House, and then a 2-lane section going to the east from Broster House over to 15th Street, once again up over the BNSF Railway. We've got down on the bottom here, these are just a couple few goals that align with some of the major benefits of the corridor. And then up in the upper map here, what we're trying to show is now that we're out of the design phase and we're starting to kind of incrementally move to the west, we're solidifying our construction schedule a little bit more. So these dates aren't firm, but they're very close to what we're anticipating. So this winter here, we're looking at finishing this embankment area on the east side of the railway. In the spring of next year, we want to start a continuation to the west. So our first spot will be starting at the Broster House intersection, February, March, depending on weather, and then continuing west. Sorry, I wasn't holding that close now. Continuing west over towards Broster House, then continuing west over towards Country Club roundabout, and then trying to finalize all the improvements by early 2021 or summer of 2021. And then this is just a rendering that we put together for the bridge, and a lot of the questions that we've been getting from the Hidden Hills community, Larkspur community. We've been meeting with individuals or doing emails, and we're planning on doing some more small group meetings and open houses to try to share this a little bit more so people can start getting kind of a visual of what this new extension and overpass is going to look like. one major piece that we have here is we have to, once again, coordinate with BNSF to get approval for this bridge. And there's a lot of requirements around that. I will say that been good to work with so far. It's been an efficient process, but it has requirements for their clearance above the rail, and it moves this road up to a higher level than some people might be anticipating. And so we just want to kind of share this and try to get that out there to the community and get people aware and see what concerns that they have and see what things that we can work into our design to address those as best that we can. And then, so moving forward here, I mentioned on the left there we have public outreach meetings, the centers, some stakeholder groups, and then we have some future decision points for council. The big thing I want to point out with the public outreach is going to be, that are coming up here, is we have a lot of small group meetings, and those are primarily going to be around this bridge overcrossing in Broster House, which is starting in the spring. And then that's going to quickly continue to the west, for a lot of these right-of-way conversations about parcels that we may need to purchase some right-of-way for these improvements. I have highlighted here open houses, construction kickoff, project updates, social media. I see James over here staring me in the back of the head. So what I'd like to do is just plug our website and specifically the project updates. We have a card that's sitting over here on the table with our website, which is Bend, Oregon, and then /Murphy Project. Grab one over there. There's a phone number on there, and there's an email address on there. If you call the phone number, you'll get me. I'll do my best to get back to you within 24 to 48 hours, or I might punt it to someone to help me out. And then also on the website, you can go on there and scroll down to the bottom and sign up for project updates. You'll get weekly project updates during construction, telling you what the detours are, telling you if there's any changes coming, giving you some photos of construction. And then additionally, we'll have our emails just telling you about open houses that are coming up and other opportunities for us to reach out to the community and get input from the community as well. And then the other piece that I was just missing is if you are one of the community members who's directly adjacent to the corridor or one of these areas like the bridge overcrossing where it's talking about some of the small group meetings, you'll most likely be getting a mailer or something that comes in the mail notifying you that we would like to try to coordinate a meeting. Okay.
So just due to the issues we had with traffic and whatnot, we'll take maybe 3 questions on this, and then I encourage, because this is an ongoing project that is funded, please get in contact with Garrett so that it can be addressed, and it'll be continually addressed at more and more and more of these meetings. So Butch, let's start with you.
Thank you for that information. That's very helpful. We actually have been trying to get a hold of someone in your office for quite some time about a particular safety issue that's developing as part of this construction. We live off of Ferguson, and 15th Street is our primary access in and out of, well, everywhere. And forever, there's been enough space on Ferguson when you're heading west that if a car is trying to make a left-hand turn across 2 lanes of traffic, another car can turn right. And now there's a curve there. So only one car can go up to that stop sign heading west at a time. And when we have 2 schools in a park down at the southern end of 15th, you're going to have school buses and cars lined up trying to make a left-hand turn there across 2 lanes of traffic, and that's going to take forever. And all the cars that have to go right are going to be stuck behind those people, and they're going to cut through Kings Forest. And so all those kids who are trying to walk to the school bus and ride their bike to school are going to be dealing with angry motorists whipping through Kings Forest to get up to Reed Market because they can't get past the buses trying to turn left. Yeah. So that curve needs to be gone so that we can have a right-hand turn lane. And Mr. Little Bit of Pity, wherever you are, that's what we need. There's a giant fat shoulder there. We just need to get that paved, put a little line there, right-hand turn lane, problem solved.
So this was a topic that was brought up at City Council as well last night. I think there's several community members whose voice has been heard. We've gotten a few CSRs over it. I've gotten some emails specifically to the to the Murphy Project email address. I think it's something that I want to continue to talk to about with some of the community members. I want to understand a little bit more, and I also want to go out and validate some of these concerns that have arisen since we've made the improvements. The concerns specifically around the queuing and whether or not this is a increased safety issue, and whether or not this does actually create some cut-through traffic. And those are things that what I would propose is, as soon as we do open up 15th, again, to southbound traffic, that there's some efforts that I'd like to do in order to try to address those. Before going down that, what I would also like to provide is, I guess, some of the reasoning why that became this kind of interim improvement. So I say interim because with the TSP, there is a project that's proposed for this intersection to address some of the safety concerns and capacity concerns that exist before we made this temporary fix. And part of the reasoning why we saw that need now is we were getting complaints from the other side, and CSRs from community members from the other side of vehicles, specifically vehicles that are coming down 15th Street at high speed and cutting the corner into Ferguson at a high speed and cutting that corner. And there were some accidents. It wasn't one of our highest intersections as far as number of accidents goes and severity, but it was something that we were hearing a lot about. And so knowing that we were building these sidewalk improvements on the west side of 15th Street, and that there's a park that's going in south of Murphy and a school south of Murphy, and we're expecting to see a lot more pedestrian traffic because now we are improving that pedestrian connectivity, that we also needed to figure out a way to try to, as I said, address those safety concerns at that intersection in an interim way. So, our traditional intersection wouldn't be skewed like that, and that's part of what's creating that, initial safety concern of people coming fast down 15th, cutting the corner onto Ferguson, which I think everybody can admit it was a concern, it was a little bit of an issue, but then what we did take away is we took away that opportunity to cut around those vehicles going left. But when we put, the other part of that is when we put the curb in, is it turns that intersection so that it's perpendicular to 15. So it's more of a traditional intersection where the driver's facing the road, they have a clear sight line to their left so they can see vehicles approaching, they can see pedestrians crossing the road as well. And you don't have vehicles that can go around to the right who have that sight line obstructed. So that's our engineering reasoning behind it. And I will fully listen to the community concerns, and I would love to, if everyone takes my card who has a concern and just sends me your email address. And I promise you that the next thing that we will do is once we fully open up that road, we will go look at these capacity, delay, potential cut-through concerns more. And I'm happy to go meet with people on site and talk about it more, and I want to follow up with it. It's obviously, there's been a lot of people who've talked about it.
If you can get a project engineer that is willing to do that for you, take advantage. So everybody in here, whether it's that intersection or something else along Murphy, get his card.
I just added the contact info.
Okay. One more? Jen?
Hi, how's it going? I'm Jen from Bend. I was born and raised here. OG Monday. First of all, thank you so much. For coming this evening. I really appreciate it. My question is, we're putting 2 schools in there, correct? And then how many houses are going to get packed into that spot? And how long is this going to last with all of that density going in there? That's my question.
Sure. I can answer without getting into the details of your specific questions with numbers of houses. But what we do.
How many houses are going in there? And what type of housing? Is it high density?
We would have to talk offline. So that's a whole opportunity area along 15th Street. There's specific zoning. There's work going on in Southeast Bend in the expansion area, which isn't currently zoned. That's an area that they're working on. But what we do, we do a large regional modeling effort when we do these transportation corridors. We look at the zoning, we look at what the trips generated are for those areas, and we basically plan our infrastructure out for a 30-year model. And I'll say on 15th Street, what we're looking at here is much larger growth than what we're typically looking at our transportation projects. It's usually, when we're doing these projections, it's usually a 1 to 2% growth rate. 15th Street, almost a 6% growth rate is what we're looking at with our transportation improvements. So it is significant. We recognize there's a lot of growth in there. I don't know the specifics of housing numbers. I would have to talk to planners and private development, and that's information we can get for you. You can send that to that email address, and I can get you more info on that part.
There is also an active citizen committee that is working with the city, Southeast Area Plan. What's the exact acronym? CPAC. So, once again, so those people aren't even inside city limits yet, but they're inside the urban growth boundary. So I know a lot of these questions people want answers, but I don't think they exist yet. So that's just, I mean, I'm not trying to poo-poo people's questions, but there's literally, they are trying to figure out how to expand out to the urban growth boundary as we speak. So just keep staying focused and keep asking people questions. That is the only way that the answers will even be resolved, because once again, that is inside urban growth boundary, but it is outside of the city limits, the area that you're referring to. So it is truly, an unknown at this. I mean, I've heard random numbers, but I would not want to quote something until it's actually inside city limits.
What if some of us don't want that?
You're not gonna like my answer.
No, I understand the issue, but there's a lot of people that want everybody to be the last person that comes to bed. And that's just a real tough.
We wanted to close the doors a long
Yeah,
time.
no, I get that, but most people like to think that you can move around the United States freely, so I would hate to I don't really have a friendly answer for you, so. One more question on this topic, and then we're gonna switch, give like 2-3 minutes, and then we're gonna switch to the sewers, because a lot of people have questions about that.
Is 15th going to have a center turn lane? Because now it's horrible, all those new houses are there, and people are, trying to turn in and out, and there's no turn lane anywhere on 15th.
So,
Center turn lane.
are you talking about south of Murphy?
I'm talking about the whole 15.
Oh, the whole thing, okay. I've heard some specific comments about south of 15.
Lived there since 77, so it's.
So this comes back to some of the planning efforts, the TSP, our limited capital budget. What we're budgeted for on this project is to build Murphy. And the stuff that we've done to the north has been some additional funding, specifically from ADA funding in parks. But right now, that's our primary focus. There is a project within the TSP that does identify improvements on 15th Street, but I'm not 100% sure of the limits of that, and that's not finalized yet either, so I wouldn't want to speak to that.
It's in the list for that short term.
For that entire segment. And then there's also several improvements that are taking place along 15th, but once again, that one specifically falls under the TSP, or Transportation System Plan. That's the first time I did an acronym tonight, and last time James gave me such a hard time all night about acronyms.
Okay, and I promise only one other question, but since you've asked a couple, we're gonna this will be the last question on this topic.
I'm wondering I'm Judy, and I live off of Ferguson, but I use 15. What's going to happen at the end of 15, past the high school, when you get to Knott Road? Is that part of yours?
Did everyone get that? What's the improvement of 15th and Knott? So right now, the school district is down there doing they're building a high school now, a middle school later. And with the high school that's under construction now, part of their public improvements are gonna require the construction of a new collector road that goes through the property connecting from 15th over to Broster House. And that's gonna be just north of the high school. And then in addition to that, they're gonna be constructing a roundabout at Knott in 15th Street. And I believe that's scheduled right now to start early next year. And they are gonna keep that intersection open while that's under construction, so they're gonna have a bypass road that goes right around the north of the construction. Yeah, you're welcome.
So, sorry to cut you short tonight. So I just got notified that we need to make sure that there's a very good understanding of the projects that are funded and not funded and what are possibly going to be part of this bond in May. So for instance, what Garrett has been discussing for the last 15 minutes, that is all entirely funded. So what Eric keeps bringing up, the transportation system plan, that is not funded. The city councilors, city staff, and all the lobby groups, whatnot, whoever you want to say it is, are going to be asking the citizens of Bend how to fund this, and there are a couple more funding meetings for the Citywide Transportation Advisory Committee, which has been in function for 2 years. So
JD, I think we just need to make it really clear that that first bucket, that everything was talking about, those first projects.
So the entire first project that was being discussed, I'm not gonna say the entire thing, I'm gonna say the majority of it is not funded. So that means it's not happening yet, but it's wanted to happen by the people that have been planning it and thinking about it. Everybody kind of got that down, because basically, it's a question of property taxes, but at the same time, there's also gonna be bonds that are paid off and going away very soon, so please, read the news, watch KTVZ, do whatever, look on our website to stay going on. Let's discuss sewer projects.